When you encounter the electronic page, your finger wants to freeze.
78.
June
2.
month
Old
has
Gate.
been a month of silent celebrations, although my wish was to make them public. And this is the kind of attempt. But in themselves, they have been celebration both silent and private.
Tower Bridge.
But who cares? On Friday, June 21st, my grandfather Flavio Velasquez was born, the doctor of the poor, according to my uncle Pancho, and according to his neighborhood of Bellavista in Callao, Peru. In 2012, his body was buried in the Jardines de la Paz cemetery. In March 2024, I visit the Presbítero Maestro Cemetery for the first time in my life. I am still struck by how I act on desires that have been dormant in me for a long time. But in my humble understanding, I had to leave the country and then return to put that desire into action. That day, I met Cesar, an actor and a visitor to the Presbítero Cemetery. It was almost like meeting destiny. To visit the Presbítero Maestro that day. ¿Cómo estaban? Bueno, aquí fue el baile del velo. Que lo organizó José Carlos Mariátegui, ¿no es cierto?
Exacto.
Con la música de la marcha fúnebre de Chopin.
Por uno que tocaba un violín.
Con un violín, ¿y qué más?
Y otro que tocaba un violonchelo.
Un violonchelo. Y
la chica está... Más o menos, así estoy imitando.
¿Y cómo? Y dices que se escapó.
La chica tenía, hasta acá tenía el pedazo. Qué vergüenza.
Sí, he visto ahí, en Wikipedia aparece, ¿no? Y según César, se escapó Mariátegui de... ¿Y qué? Pero todo eso lo hicieron en conmemoración de...
No, lo hicieron en rebeldía, no sé, la época, algo así contra el gobierno. Pero lo hicieron a las 3 de la mañana.
Ya,
a las 3 de la mañana, cuando fueron descubiertos por policías de esa época.
Ya.
No estás grabando, no me estás grabando. Mierda. ¿Qué importa? Yo que me conozco en televisión, yo soy el vuelto. Fueron y vinieron, se escaparon por acá, por la policía vino, agarró a la chica rusa, la atrapó a los músicos, y él con otro escritor o otro poeta de la época, no me acuerdo quién,
ya,
justo vinieron
salieron
por acá,
corriendo.
por acá, se fueron hasta la pared del fondo, doblaron a la izquierda, siguieron corriendo de frente y saltaron la valla que hay ahí, y se retiraron. Bueno, en esa época Mariátegui tenía su pierna entera, ¿no? Ya no era...
Así criticando el gobierno de esa época, que ¿sabes de quién era? No.
No, eso sí no investigado.
Bueno. I remember my grandmother Hortensia returning her home one day after visiting the Presbítero Maestro Cemetery and lamenting not finding someone there. I must have been 12 or 13 years old. Probably that day, the silent desire began to seep into me. But at that age, I hadn't yet taught myself how to act on my desires, or our desires conditioned by forces I now avoid to relearn. I am still in that relearning process.
21.
I ride on a bus, a double-decker bus, Burgundy or London Reds. The seats are also red and gray, And I remember the school skirt from San Antonio Girls' Schools in Callao, my school. Now, my girls' schools also admits boys. Everything is transformable. How nice. I don't know what the reasons are for my particular skills in relating to male gender, but I assume that that division experience in school wasn't very helpful.
78.
Anyway,
2.
that
Update.
topic should be buried in some childhood cemetery. Does burying or burying or enterrar mean overcoming? Doesn't matter. The important things today, now, is celebrations, and cemeteries. Why this obsession with being in places where life is redefined? Maybe because everything needs to be redefined, or at least several things that make little sense to me, and I can't believe I am the only person who feels this way. Comte, Comte, Auguste Comte. The only thing I wanted to write about today is the positivist philosopher Auguste Comte, who has some exciting ideas. Exciting ideas. Proposes a calendar celebrating the birth of people who have contributed to humanity. He believes emulating religion in some aspects is quite useful. Religion or church belief organize and cohere society. Change begins with awareness. Change begins with awareness. History repeats itself unless we do the work of recognizing. Recognizing. Change begins with awareness. Change begins with recognition. Recognizing what we did more or less, or what we did wrong, or what we did not so well, to not repeat it because everything is perfectible, perfectible. Everything can be improved, transformed. So Comte proposes a calendar that remembers the birth of people who contributed to the development of humanity, because for Comte, humanity is God. What? Yes. You, me, her, him, they, we, us, you, we are the divine humanity. Comte even talks about a triad. He also mentions the humanity of the future, and that thinking about the humanity of the future almost suffocates me. Because my nephew is named Lucas. Lucas, like this street. And I want to believe that something I do will contribute to him feeling less confused about this world when he continues enjoying life. And I have moved on to another plane and list about some things that I don't know. I don't know. For example, here in the UK, holidays are called bank holidays.
Druid Street.
Bank holidays. Yes, bank as banco. Holidays as feriados del banco. It is obvious, right? That days the banks close, don't open, and that's why holidays are called that. However, what do you think, divine humanity, about that? Could it be that the bank is the god of this society, of this war? I will repeat it. Could it be that the bank is the god of this society? I don't know. Could it be? In Peru, we still name holidays after certain religious saints. I don't know, but changing those names to bank holidays, it has a certain pragmatic logic that sometimes scares me. Poor Auguste Comte's ideas. Where do ideas go that never come to fruition? NATO will be also be quite difficult to create a canon of celebrations to decide which people have contributed to society and celebrate their birth. That canon will be very complicated to generate. But the pragmatism of bank, bank holiday, June 30 is the birth of Aurora Colina, a Peruvian actress and a cultural promoter. Last year I visited her alone. Now I go with a group of people and I understand how privacy become publicly. And it feels like as a dawn on a hill. Aurora means dawn. On June 23, 1805, Manuel Asensio Segura was born. What a name! Manuel Asensio, Segura, secure. He is considered the father of Peruvian theater, a representative of costumerism at the beginning of Republican literature. The beginning of Republican literature. It is strange to recognize that far from your homeland, the most representative authors of your country are particularly unknown. I searched for Cesar Vallejos in bookstores here, and they don't have any of his books, not to mention Manuel Asensio Segura. I understand what the work of ambassadors and cultural attaches is about, but how much have they done? How much do we do? I feel like it is my turn to be one because here, far from my homeland, I don't know if it exists. And it is strange because maybe we should also redefine nations, but I don't agree with that homogenization, that art that keeps repeating patterns that seem trapped in the bank holiday paradigma. Ñacatita is Manuel Asensio Segura's most important work. I read it in school, just like Romeo and Juliet by Shakespeare. I don't think other schools around the world read Manuel Asensio Segura. Do we need to read him more? My culture is so influenced or colonized by so-called Western culture that right now I am in a cycle of reading Greek tragedies. Will Manuel Asensio Segura's verse be translated into English? Can our costumerism have any universal tint? Aquí
Derecho de
está
imagen.
Manuel Pardo y Lavalle,
Primo.
primo de Felipe Pardo y Aliaga. Y bueno, acá César me estaba contando, César es alguien que es actor, pero que también le gusta visitar el presbítero maestro. Me estaba diciendo pues que miren el tipo de tumba que tiene Manuel Pardo y Baravalle, que claro, ha sido presidente de la República, fundador del Partido Civil. Y él es pariente de Alberto Isola, porque es Lavalle, claro. Y esta es pues la tumba de Felipe Pardo y Aliaga, que es bastante grande, hermosa, y ahí tiene el símbolo del teatro. Aquí vemos una inscripción que se encuentra al costado. ¿Y dónde creen que está Manuel Asensio Segura? Realmente que si no estaba el día de hoy César, que también es actor, nunca la hubiera encontrado. Y bueno, ahí le hemos dejado una flor amarilla a Manuel Asensio Segura. Bueno, ese es como el recorrido que hemos hecho el día de hoy en el presbítero maestro. Ahí está el escritor de Ñacatita y bueno, ya ustedes busquen en Wikipedia, pues mínimo. ¿Madrugada de cuándo? Acá hicieron un baile, una rusa. ¿Cómo se llamaba la rusa? Que bailó la marcha fúnebre. Norca Ruscaya. Y estaba acompañada de José Carlos Mariátegui
Y Abraham Valderomar.
y Abraham Valderomar. Claro, mire ese tipo de artista.
Poetas, escritores.
Claro, pero yo
Sácate la foto.
en general. Oh, mira el baile de Norca Rascaya. Stop Lower March on the 453 Marylebone, 8:11 p.m. The sun is still shining, and I see the London Eye. A friend got a ballot, una papeleta, this week, a $5,000 red ticket for throwing a cigarette butt on the streets of Lower March. What order and control in the United Kingdom. A part of me admires and wants to replicate it. Another part of me feels like a part of me is dying while adapting to laws and norms. I breathe. I breathe because I exist and because I believe in a certain transcendence. Otherwise, probably I wouldn't be celebrating humanity and writing this. How pathetic to believe in transcendence, or how human. On June 11, 1806, Felipe Pardo y Aliaga was born, another father of Peruvian theater, whom Sebastián Salazar Bondi, another father of Peruvian theater, according to Peruvian playwright Sara Joffre, comment of Pardo y Aliaga's work with the following words. For our censors, any liberalism was reprehensible. Pardo illustrates in a comedy, Fruits of Education, this refusal to accept renewal. Between a stiff English groom and a fondness for a certain lively national dance, one must choose the English groom because the dance equates to barbarism. End of the quote. On June 14, 1894, José Carlos Mariátegui was born. Look at what he writes, how he writes. There are those who consider me a Europeanizer, europeizante, Ukrainizer, alien to the facts and issues of my country. Let my word justify me against the sheep and the ship, that ship and interested conjecture. I made my best learning in Europe, and I believe there is no salvation for Indo American without European or Western science and thought. Sarmiento,
Sí, me
who is
acuerdo.
still one of the creators of Argentine identity,
Sí,
was a
esa vídeo.
Europeanizer in his time. He
Sí,
found
pues
no
todo
better
está
way to be
sucio.
Argentine.
No, no voy a decir porque no falta.
There are the gods of my
Ay,
humanity, also my grandfather Flavio Velasquez. Although now that I have written that quote, I don't know what to think. Am I also a Europeanizer? I felt I had to come here to understand the Europeanized curriculum I studied in the school and then at the university, and then I saw it replicated in theater billboards. However, I am grateful to have been born in my
sí,
country and
ahí
educated
dentro
there
Adentro.
because
dormía
something happens
con un
here
colchón.
that
Ahí
¿Quién?
adentro. Ahí adentro.
I can
¿Víctor
still
Raúl Aya de la
put
Torre
it
o
into
José Carlos
words, but
Mariátegui?
that
No, Víctor Hugo Laya.
scares me.
Así,
Although I don't know, maybe
Víctor Raúl Aya de
it's
la
not
Torre dormía
so
ahí dentro
scared,
cuando lo
but it
estaban
is related
persiguiendo,
to that bank
cuando
holiday.
Sánchez Cierro lo estaba persiguiendo.
Bank
Y le
holiday.
habían puesto ahí
Why not
un...
book holiday or reading holiday? Well, whatever. Nothing. Did you see Manuel Asensio Segura's tombstone? Asensio Segura, ascend, secure. Should we stay secure about ourselves, about humanity, about words? Last year, I lived with Hemali, who is from South Africa. One day at the kitchen table, I quote a quote by Hannah Arendt appeared. We are always being born. Yes, we are always burning, nacer, burning. And those are reasons to celebrate.
'78 to Aldgate.